Adam's going to touch on that when she does her portion of this meeting in just a little bit. So we do want to welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us on this provider call for August 2022. As a reminder, this meeting is being recorded, and by staying on with us, you consent to being recorded. We want to start out by just noting, I think a lot of you know, we've had a lot of changes with the agency and our commission over the last couple of weeks. Per Ramford, Paul Solomon, Lisa Ludwig, Alton Harvey, and Max Williams have all been reappointed to the commission for 4-year terms. Per Ramford was reappointed as chair of the commission. Paul Solomon was appointed vice chair. And then we also have our 4 newest commissioners who are also appointed for 4-year terms: Peter Buckley, Jennifer Nash, Jennifer Parrish Taylor, and Kristen Weinmiller. Peter Buckley is a former state representative from Ashland and co-chair of the Ways and Means Committee. During his tenure as a legislator and budget committee co-chair, he helped protect public defense by authorizing diverting court-generated revenues to OPDS, which provided additional funding during a period of dramatic budget reductions in all state agencies and services. Commissioner Buckley retired from the legislature in 2017, after which time he joined Southern Oregon Success. He continues to be involved in mental health and public safety issues related to people in addiction and the services needed to support them. Jennifer Nash is a Corvallis attorney who represents clients in criminal and family law matters. She's not currently a public defense provider, but previously administered the public defense contract in Benton County and has served on the governor's task force on indigent defense, the Pay Parity Committee of the Oregon Criminal Defense Lawyers Association, and the Willamette Criminal Justice Council, which is a statutory body that coordinates local criminal justice plans and policies in Benton County. Jennifer Parrish Taylor is the Director of Advocacy and Public Policy for the Urban League of Portland, where she supports policy initiatives designed to eliminate or reduce racial disparities and legislation and appropriations to support public defense and reducing racial disparities. She also was recently confirmed by the Oregon Senate to serve on the Board of Public Safety Standards and Training as a public representative. And finally, Kristen Weinmiller is a Portland attorney in private practice who chaired the Oregon State Bar Indigent Defense Task Force in 2000. Among its recommendations were increased resources in OPDS for administration, creating a resource and assistance offices in OPDS, and providing additional support for public defense lawyers involved in civil commitment and juvenile cases. She's a life member of the Oregon Criminal Defense Lawyers Association and has served on the Oregon Bar, Press, and Broadcaster Council. For those who may not be aware, as the commission works to find an interim executive director, last week it tasked me, Lori Bender, who's our chief criminal trial counsel, and Brian DeForest, who's our deputy director, with leading the agency together during this interim period until a new interim director can be found. We did want to touch on the invoice submission process. We know the form was down earlier this week, but it's back online and ready for submissions again. One thing to note, and it was in an email that went out through our listserv yesterday for OPDS updates, is that any invoices that were submitted between Saturday, August 20th at 7:13 a.m. and Tuesday before the invoice submission tool was taken down from the website, those submissions will need to be resubmitted because they did not actually go through and we do not have them. So if you submitted something in that period, you'll want to resubmit it. With that, do we have Ralph? There's Ralph. Ralph, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes,
Hello?
we can.
Okay.
Yes,
sorry
we
about
can.
that. I'm actually walking down the street, so I apologize for that. So the good news is that we're still at 28 days under the 30-day mark. We would have been a little bit less than that, but we had a little bit in place. Important to remember that the issue that happened with the invoice system, it's not going to affect, it did not affect any payments going out. Anything that was in the queue got paid. Payments are gone out like normal. Just to get a reminder from the index. We expect there to be a small bump in intake, but it should in no way affect what's going to happen as far as payments. We expect to stay under 30 days and possibly get even less than that. Again, if you have billing issues, please address them to the accounts payable email address, which is accountspayable@opds.com. And if you have case support services inquiries, send it to the css@opds.state.or.us. And I think that's about, I'm happy to say that's about all the update that I have.
All right,
I'll
thank
kick it
you,
back.
Ralph.
Yep.
Thanks, Ralph. Autumn, I'm going to turn it over to you now.
Thank you, Shannon. I am going to give the legislative update. I think last time that we had a provider call, I talked a little bit about upcoming dates related to the emergency board in September, also related to the upcoming deadlines related to the time to submit legislative concepts. All of that were things I covered last time. So I'm going to kind of go over that again, but also talk about some other things because we just had a legislative 3-branch work group meeting yesterday. And yesterday we had a PDSC meeting where a number of the concepts that we're going to be bringing to the emergency board were approved. So just to kind of set the stage and backtrack a tiny bit, last time I talked about the legislative committee days, which are the time in which the e-board meets in September. Essentially, these are all the meetings that occur during the interim between full legislative sessions, but work gets done. At the emergency board, they have just a pool of money that they can pull small parts away from for emergency situations. So that's what e-board is, emergency board. That board is chaired by the presiding officer. So the Senate president and the Speaker of the House chair the emergency board. And they will be meeting in subgroups and in a full work group during the legislative days in late September. Those dates are 9/21 to 9/23. So that's what we're preparing for. And what happened yesterday was we had approval for 4 different submissions to the emergency board that the PDSC has now signed off on and were concepts that were developed within the agency. So 2 of them are just reports, 2 of them are actual requests. So the first one that's a report is the financial update. So that is going to be essentially where we're at, where we stand. This is a basic document that we create. But in this case, the emergency board asked additionally for further information about how we're spending the $100 million SPA. And so that's another piece of it, is that we'll be giving that report to the legislature about how the $100 million SPA has been spent and how it plans to be spent. Another thing that we're talking about with the emergency board, and this is a report, and this one is more directly responsive to House Bill 5030. If you guys are tracking, that's kind of our guidepost right now from the 2021 session, and really kind of guides our compliance with our budget process. So that's going to be the CAP division update plan. So the plan for the CAP division was due at this next emergency board. And so we will have presented the plan in a document form. And if they ask us to report on it in an actual hearing, we'll do that as well. So that's a big document that just gets submitted and accepted by the legislature. But the next thing that kind of fits right in with that CAP plan, I'll just say again, compliance, audit, performance, and what the trial division is oriented with. So those are your 2 people here. Shannon and Lori are sort of heading up that division right now. So they're all kind of tied in with CAP, just to kind of give a little more framework for everyone. So that plan is going to be due, but we're also needing some other positions related to it. So we have requests for 3 different limited duration positions that would be a place where we're asking for additional positions that aren't currently in our budget, but we'd like to stand up during the end of this biennium. So from now until the end of, or up until July. So that is 3 different positions, and the cost of that and the request to the emergency board is about $305,000. So that's one of the actual monetary requests. The other request is a much larger request, and it is related to expansion of the parent-child representation project or program, which is something that most of you guys have heard about or may just affectionately call PCRP. So PCRP expansion is on the table for this emergency board. We've asked the emergency board to give us both permission to expand and the money to do so. So the expansion, if it occurs, if the emergency board approves these things, would be in Jackson County, Josephine County, Lane County, and Clackamas County. This would be if all four were, fully approved and funded, would cost about $5.8 million. We do, just for full transparency, possibly have that coming into our budget through 4E money, which is the federal funds that support those kinds of programs. So it's possible, but that even if the emergency board doesn't fund it and gives us instead just permission to expand, that we might be able to stand that up anyway. Many reasons why that's important. I'm not going to belabor the point. I think everyone understands why PCRP expansion would be very important. So if that occurred, the rollout would probably be in early 2023. So before the next biennium starts, that's why we're asking for it in the emergency board. That sort of closes my chapter on emergency board stuff. Next thing that I'm going to talk about is yesterday. Also, in addition to attending the PDSC meeting, I was also at the 3-branch work group meeting, which I've talked about a couple of other times. I think anybody who's got their ear to the ground is paying attention to that. So I've gone through the whole membership, but it's a 3-branch work group because it has the Chief Justice office, as well as the governor's office, as well as legislators, more heavily focused with legislative representation. It is updated. Previously, it was not planning to meet through the next session, the 2023 session. It was planning to take a break from meeting. We meet monthly, but now they've decided to go ahead and continue and meet monthly through the 2023 session. I think part of the reason for that is that they do anticipate having legislative concepts ready and being worked through the next legislative session. So that means that the work group can continue to work on those concepts while the session is continuing. So I think it's an important step and does show that they're really trying to move the timelines up, because if anybody's hearkening back to when this first came up and when I was first talking about it, at that time, the goals were to not have legislative concepts until the 2024 legislative session, which a lot of people felt like was a little too far away. So they have said that there is going to be legislative concepts, maybe not everything. But the thing we talked about yesterday in the work group was about the governance of our agency, essentially, and about public defense in Oregon and the potential movement of the commission to another branch of government, to independence, and definitely about diversifying the appointment authority to divide it between all 3 branches of government. And also, besides just the 3 branches of government, maybe having Oregon State Bar or Diversity Bar, other types of entities be able to make referrals in order to make appointments into the commission. So this is in its infancy, but it's definitely high priority for many people. And I think it's definitely looking like it's going to get traction, and that it's going to probably be put in one of the placeholder bill drafts. So the next meeting of the 3-branch work group is 9/29. And the other kind of deadline that's mixed in there is at the end of legislative committee days, which is 9/23 is the date that is a cutoff to submit legislative concept proposals for people that aren't legislators. So that's just sort of a timeline that's on my mind. So I'm going to put it out there. That kind of gives me the summary. I'm happy if people want to ask questions right now directly related to what I just brought up. I'm happy to take those in order. Usually, just for everyone's sake, when we do questions in this, we don't have a chat open. So if you want to ask a question, you have to put your hand up in the meeting and then ask it orally. So. If you think of something before the meeting's out, don't hesitate to do that. But otherwise, I'm done.
All right, thank you, Autumn. Lori, I think you are up to talk about the expansion of the 158 an hour program.
Okay, welcome everyone. Before I talk about the unrepresented client program, I would like to shout out to Jeff Goki, David Glenn, the Duns, Phil Egru, I think Brian Holmes. I'm not sure who else was on the Goki Glenn team for the DeFrank case, but Mr. DeFrank was acquitted of aggravated murder earlier this week, and I just want to extend my personal appreciation for that win. And the agency, this case spanned over a decade, more than a decade, and I just think the result is incredible for the team, for Mr. DeFrank, and for the public defense community. So, well, good job, well done. With respect to the unrepresented client issue or program, the commission extended the program on August 19th to include or to allow contractors who have less than 1.0 MAC to accept assignment to these cases. The cases appear on a list. The list is now a single list that OJD and the agency maintain. The list basically is statewide and it includes all in custody and out of custody unrepresented persons. The 158 is applicable to the in custody unrepresented persons. So if there's an individual in any jurisdiction that is in custody and unrepresented, OPDS will compensate the non-contract attorney, private bar attorney, or the contract attorney who has less than 1.0 MAC to accept assignment and appointment on that individual. The 158 is an hourly rate. It extends and lives with the duration of the case. The program currently just is available to the end of the year, but if you accept an assignment on a case, the 158 goes with the case. So, you know, you will receive that compensation until the case is resolved. There is a soft cap on the 158 of $10,000. However, that is a soft cap, and the agency will authorize billing in excess of that cap under the circumstances of the case. There is a requirement for interim billing, and that essentially is to allow the agency to keep record of the cost of the 158 program. So the information about the 158 hourly rate is on the website.
The MailChimp yesterday.
Yeah, there was a MailChimp out to the provider community yesterday that explains the eligibility for 158, and it also solicits any ideas from the provider community about how the agency might address the unrepresented person's situation. So we are looking to fund different ideas, different programs, perhaps looking at expanding, not maybe 158, but something less than 158 to address the number of out of custody unrepresented persons. So please email your creative ideas to Christine Breton. Her email address is on the website, or myself. but her name is up there and she'll be collecting all these ideas. We do intend to continue to work with the commission, the Chief Justice, the legislature on how to address this problem. Currently, I think we're down to 46 in custody, unrepresented persons. So that's much better than it was last week. And all of us appreciate the attorneys, the provider community who has stepped up to take one of these cases, because they're, you know, they're in custody. It's usually a serious charge. Some of these individuals have had one or two other attorneys. Some have had more than two attorneys. So they're not easy cases. And so we appreciate everyone who has taken a case. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you, Lori. We have one final item on our agenda as far as what we want to update you all on, and then we can open it up for questions from you all. I wanted to talk about a little bit just about reporting and where we are on that. Because if you'll remember, last month, we explained to all of you that we were going to pause reporting for the month of August, with that to resume in September. For PCRP providers, because we're having to make very minimal changes to the reporting template. We were able to do that. We've got some finalizing that we're doing on that, but we anticipate still sending out the updated template for PCRP open caseload reporting next week as we had planned. Unfortunately, due to the events over the last few weeks, we're not as far along in the process of updating the reporting template and process for our non-PCRP contract providers. So we're not going to be sending out the reporting templates for those providers next week, like we had talked about. Next week, our team that's working on reporting will be working with providers who expressed interest in providing input. They'll be working to test the template and submission process and receive any other feedback. And our new goal is to have the updated reporting template out to all non-PCRP providers by mid-September, with July, August, and September reports being due October 20th. We're hopeful that with, about a month worth of time, that's going to minimize any disruption for you all and give you plenty of time to make updates on your end, so that you're ready to go and submit reports on October 20th. That is the end of what we have. I'm happy to answer questions about reporting if I can, but we're also happy to receive whatever other questions and try to answer those that you may have. And as Autumn said, if you have questions about that, raise your hand. I do think Autumn had a response to Mr. Gorham's question about contacting commissioners.
And I do. That's correct. Steve, understood your question to be that, is there a way in which people can contact all of the commission members at once? Correct me if that's incorrect, but I'm going to answer as though that was a question. There is not right now, is the answer. The commissioners obviously are a volunteer commission, and they sort of have to determine their way in which they want to handle their emails. It brought up at the last commission meeting that they maybe like to have a group email address, but we don't have one set up yet. So in the works, the answer is, I guess, essentially no, but it's on our radar and it's something that we're working on. So if that occurs, we would definitely put it up on the commission tab of our website, and make that something that was accessible so that people could use it. That's what I've got.
Thanks, Autumn. Do others have questions for any of us? We'll do our best to answer. I am not seeing, and I don't want to rush anybody, but I'm not seeing anyone. We're almost at half an hour. I'm happy to end this call and give everybody 30 minutes of lunch back. All right, nobody's biting. So with that, I will close out this meeting. Just as a reminder, the meeting is recorded, and the recording and a copy of any provider comments or question, all of that will be made available on the OPDS website within 24 hours of this meeting ending. So with that, I will end it. Thank you very much for joining us all this month. See you next month. Thank you.